Hello everyone and welcome to our very first YouTube video. For those that don't know me, my name is Nikki and I am the content creator at Take the Lead. Each week I follow some of the trainers as they take some of our stay and learn campers on field trips out to Two Wells, Gawler or Semaphore. So here's a little video detailing some of our field trips this week. First we went to the Two Wells Oval where we worked with Ebony on her recall and her duration downs. Ebony progressed so well throughout her whole stay and learn program, but her duration downs was the last hurdle that we just couldn't quite get over. But as they say, practice makes perfect, and we were finally able to get her to maintain that down even with distractions about. She also maintained really good engagement with trainer Jess. Here we have Maeve just working on her leash skills with trainer Mikaela. Maeve is an assistance dog in training, so it's important that she maintains good engagement with her handler and solid leash skills even out in public. We were lucky enough to have Megan from Fable and Fig join us for a little photo shoot. After some one-on-one work with their trainers, Maeve and Ebony were then able to work on their leash skills around each other. They both maintained really good engagement even while one another was walking by. You can see Ebony often looks at Maeve, but she always checks back in with Jess right after doing so. When it was Maeve's turn to maintain her down while Ebony was walking around, she also did so well with checking back in with trainer Mikaela. For the dogs that enjoy them, we always finish our training sessions off with cuddles for a job well done. Next up we had Phoenix, and she worked on her leash skills with trainer Mikaela while Bentley was walking nearby. How good are these synchronized sits? Mikaela had Phoenix maintain her down while Bentley was walking nearby. Dogs often find it easier to maintain handler engagement while they're moving around. So having Phoenix maintain her down while Bentley was walking nearby was a real test for her handler focus and calm mindset. Trainers Jess and Mikaela were working like well-oiled machines, putting their dogs into downs while the other one would walk nearby. Both Phoenix and Bentley did so well out on this field trip. And of course, Phoenix finished her session with a nice little belly rub and some cuddles. Before wrapping up Bentley's session, we saw the opportunity to work him around a strange dog that he hasn't worked around before. The main goal of Bentley's training program is to address his leash reactivity towards other dogs. So when opportunities like this arise where we can work Bentley around dogs he hasn't seen before, the trainers will seize it with both hands. Bentley maintained solid engagement throughout that whole interaction, and of course he finished his session with a nice little head scratch. Next up we have Mila. Trainer Mikaela started her session just trying to build engagement with her as she was a bit distracted by everything that was going on around her. Once she was somewhat engaged, Mikaela then worked on her leash skills. Here, Mila was starting to pull ahead a little bit too much, so Mikaela used a 180 turn to reposition her in the heel position. While Mikaela had Mila, trainer Jess had Boots. And while they were working around each other, Mila decided now was the perfect time for a little toilet break. Don't worry, we cleaned it up. But Boots was completely unbothered and maintained solid engagement with trainer Jess. Once that was out of the way, Mikaela popped Mila into her down while Boots was having a nice little roll on the grass. Mikaela then freed her from the down and began to work on her leash skills around dog distraction. Boots was more than happy to maintain her down while Mila did so, and it's great to see him maintain such a calm mindset even with other dogs around. Mila was a bit distracted by his presence, and Mikaela had to work a bit harder to maintain her engagement. Here we can see Boots once again maintaining solid engagement with Jess while Mikaela practices walking Mila around him. On another one of our field trips this week, we went into the main street of Gawler. This is a great opportunity to work our stay and learn campers around so many different distractions that aren't present at our other field trip locations. Up first we had Casey. Casey maintained really nice leash skills throughout her session, but she was a little bit wary because there were so many different noises and smells and distractions that she wasn't used to. I apologise that this video is vertical and not landscape like the rest. But you can see Casey is checking the place out. She's a little bit unsure about her surroundings. Despite being a little bit nervous, she maintained a really nice position by Jess's side and wasn't trying to flee. She would get a little bit distracted every now and then, but she was still able to maintain a nice position by Jess's side. As we were walking down the main street, Casey got spooked by a big rubbish truck that came by. She tried to flee, but Jess instead popped her into a sit to help her work through that fear. Fleeing or thrashing about on the lead would only reinforce that anxiety. Maintaining a sit is a calming behaviour, so doing so while being exposed to the trigger, in this case the rubbish truck, will allow Casey to build new patterns of behaviour and generalise this experience with other similar situations. She was a little bit rattled by this experience, but Jess was able to work her through it and continue her training session. Next up on our Gawler field trip was Diamond. Diamond will be undergoing the public access test in the future, but she lacks some general confidence. During this field trip, we really focused on having her maintain a calm mindset and handler focus, even with all the distractions around her. As we were about to enter a very busy area, Jess first had Diamond maintain a sit to foster that calm mindset and focus. The automatic sliding doors of this coffee shop spooked Diamond, but just as she did with Casey, Jess didn't let Diamond reinforce her fear by fleeing. She instead worked her through the moment and was able to have her carry on with the rest of the training session. However, Diamond was still rattled, and here she is spooked by my presence behind her. We knew that this area would be a big test for Diamond, but if she is to pass her future PAT test, she needs to be able to remain calm and focused in busy environments. Here, Diamond was once again spooked, but again, Jess just worked her through it and had her maintain a sit to help build that calm mindset back up again. Although she was still looking around and being wary of her surroundings, she was also checking back in with Jess, which is really good to see. Once she was calm enough, they were then able to carry on through the busy area. She didn't have any more major spooks, but she was still quite cautious of her surroundings, especially of the trolleys and people walking behind her, including me. These sessions in public spaces are not only great for proving skills under distractions, but also for general exposure. One of the best ways to build confidence or decrease reactivity is to give your dog a job while being exposed to their triggers. This helps them to build new patterns of behaviour, so instead of barking, lunging or fleeing, they will remain calm. Mila started her session with a big shake-off. This is like them taking a big deep breath and helping them expel any nervous or anxious energy that they might have been holding. At first, Mila was a bit distracted, particularly with me walking behind her. She had really great threshold manners and was regularly checking in with Jess at the traffic lights. Through the street, though she was a little bit distracted, she would still regularly check back in with Jess. Every time she did so, Jess would reward her with a treat. She was a little bit pulley on the leash, so Jess would perform 360 turns with her to get her back into position and refocused. At this coffee shop, we saw that there was a dog nearby, so we used this as a perfect training opportunity to work on Mila's leash reactivity. Jess popped her into a sit using some upwards leash pressure. You can see from Mila's initial reaction to the dog barking at her that she too wanted to bark back. But using that leash pressure, Jess was able to have Mila maintain that sit and remain calm even with the dog nearby. This was a huge step in the right direction for Mila and was so proud of how she coped with that situation. For some reason, the other side of the street was much more interesting to Mila, and she was a lot more pulley on the leash. Jess utilised numerous turns and sits to get her back into position and refocused on her handler. After that, she was ready to continue her session down the street. Jezza was put to the test right at the start of his session, as he was immediately greeted by a dog barking at him. Jess once again utilised that upwards leash pressure to have Jezza maintain a sit while the dog went past. After that, they were on their way down the street. Though Jezza wasn't super pulley on the lead, he was very distracted by everything around him. He wasn't really checking back in with Jess and was more focused on looking into every store that they walked past. We encountered another dog during Jezza's session, and although he was initially interested, we were able to carry on with his session without any issues. Being a 3-month-old puppy, Echo's session was more about her exposure to the new surroundings rather than specifically working on her leash skills or anything like that. It's so important that puppies are exposed to numerous different environments from a young age. Being adequately socialised will enable puppies to grow into balanced and well-mannered adults. Here, Echo was very interested in her own reflection. I mean, I don't blame her. I would be too if I was that cute. Once she was happy with the way her hair looked, we were able to continue on with her session. Through the main street, Echo was very interested in every single brick that she walked past, and every single reflective surface. As this was primarily an exposure session, Jess wasn't asking too much of Echo. She was simply allowing her to explore her surroundings and be comfortable in the new environment. While exposure and socialisation are very important for a young puppy, being able to maintain a calm mindset in these situations is an essential skill that they will carry into adulthood. After maintaining it down in the busy street and some more exposure, it was time to wrap up Echo's session. It was then Roxy's turn. During Roxy's session, we worked on her leash skills, calm mindset, and handler focus. Roxy did so well throughout her whole session, and you can see her regularly checking back in with Jess, who would reward her for the engagement. Roxy was able to maintain a calm down despite the many distractions around her, for it was back to work on her leash skills and engagement. Next up was Boots. Here, Boots was starting to pull ahead a little bit, so Jess performed that turn that you've seen so often. Boots maintained pretty good leash skills throughout his whole walk through the street. He wasn't overly concerned with all the new distractions around him. The main goal of Boots' training program is to address his leash reactivity towards other dogs. As we were walking, we saw another dog in our path. As we continued to get closer, you can see Boots' body language become more alert. While we really wanted to take this opportunity to work Boots around this dog, it wasn't safe nor fair to anybody nearby. Boots was relatively unfazed by this interaction and was able to continue on with the rest of his session with no issues. Our last field trip feature is Bentley. Right from the start, he maintained really good engagement with trainer Jess and was regularly checking in with her despite all the distractions around him. His leash skills throughout his whole session were great, and he was regularly checking back in with Jess. Here, Jess had to perform a little dance with him just to get him back into the right position by her side. This time around, we were prepared for the dog that was waiting outside the bank. After performing a little turn, Jess had Bentley maintain a sit nearby. Despite an initial glance at the dog as it started barking at him, Bentley maintained great focus on Jess throughout the whole interaction. This was a huge step for Bentley, as the main goal of his training program was to address his leash reactivity towards other dogs. With that, we wrapped up our field trip on a high note. I hope this video provided a little bit of insight into our field trip sessions with our Stay and Learn campers. For more information or questions, visit our website or contact us.